Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa Seeger, and I'm the founder of the Aiden Jack Seeger Foundation. My son Aiden was diagnosed with ALD in 2011 at the age of 6. He was in first grade, doing well. The latter part of the year, he started having some vision problems that we just thought meant he needed glasses. And unfortunately, we lived a little bit of the diagnostic odyssey before we got the diagnosis of ALD, a disease we had never heard of. Aiden was eligible for transplant. He spent 7 months at Duke and then 3 months at NYU. And unfortunately, because he was a late diagnosis and already had so much damage, he lost all of his abilities and passed away in April of 2012. During that time, when I was doing research on anything that would possibly save his life, I came across the fact that there was a newborn screening test for ALD, but not one state was putting it to use. And I know that early diagnosis would have meant the difference of life and death, not only for him, but for thousands of other boys. And I just knew at that moment that that was my mission in life, is to try to have newborn screening added in every state so we can give the information at the appropriate time so we could actually intervene and do something about it. So we have come a long way in newborn screening in a short amount of time, but we definitely have ways to go. We definitely have further to go in that. So just a quick timeline. Aiden's Law was signed in 2013 in New York. We were the first state to start testing for ALD. And, with the data from New York, we were able to help with ALD being added to the recommended uniform screening panel in 2016, which was helpful in getting more states on board. And now in 2019, I'm excited to say that we are 14 states that are testing. So those states are New York, Connecticut, California, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Washington, Tennessee, Florida, Nebraska, Kentucky, Illinois, Texas, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And because of the addition of Texas and Illinois earlier this year, we are actually testing half of the newborns born in this country. So 2 million out of the 4 million babies born each year in the United States are now being tested, which is amazing. So here is our updated map on states that are testing and states that are either initiating efforts or hopefully coming on board soon. The green states are the states that are testing, and the red states are states that hopefully will be testing within the next couple of months or within the next year, and the blue states are the states that have started efforts. So just a little bit of an update on that. Maryland, which I did get an update earlier this week, they did have a newborn screening committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. They're hoping to get the funding approved in the beginning of 2020 to start by the end of 2020. Utah was actually supposed to have started this year, but unfortunately they had their funds were frozen. So we're looking at first quarter 2020, hopefully. Virginia is looking like the end of the second quarter of 2020. And Arizona, thanks to Justin D'Agostino and Janice Sherwood as well, they need an approval of the budget, but hopefully we're looking at 2020 as well, probably in the latter part of the year. Michigan is looking to start in the first quarter of 2020. And New Hampshire, thanks to Jill, who I think is here, the newborn screening panel just approved ALD, and they're looking for the commissioner to sign off on that. And Georgia, which did have a pilot for ALD, is looking sometime in 2020, but they don't have an exact date. So, what are some of the challenges in newborn screening? As I spend a lot of my time speaking in other states or just trying to help other advocates move forward, it really is dependent on number one, does the state have a newborn screening committee? Many states don't. New York, for example, did not. And if they do have a committee, how often are they meeting? So sometimes it could be an annual meeting, sometimes it's every other year. So that will play a part in having the disease move forward. Space, believe it or not, a lot of the laboratories do not have the space to add a new test because it does require new equipment. So they do have to look into that part of it as well when they're adding a new disease. Personnel. This sounds odd, but when I spoke to North Carolina, who did have a pilot for ALD, believe it or not, they have a personnel issue, which you wouldn't imagine considering it's one of the medical research capitals in the country, but they do. And then updating their facilities. So Ohio, as an example, they actually needed to update their electricity before they could move forward with adding ALD. So that's something that they had to go through bidding through the state and get that process done before they could move forward. So these are just some of the issues that we've encountered. But the number one problem from any state moving forward is the funding piece of it. So now I just want to talk a little bit about the federal newborn screening initiative that I started back in 2016. What I realize is that it can take 10 years or more before any disease is added to 50 states. And again, going back to the primary reason for that is funding. So the bills in 2016 were specifically in reference to ALD, and what it would do would be to offer funding so all the states could move forward. Unfortunately, we did not move forward. I realized quickly that the Republicans did not like the word mandate, so we did have to change our bill language. And 2018, we did remove that. The funds are still there, but it's on a discretionary basis. Earlier this year, we did have our bill introduced during the government shutdown, which I was excited about, but unfortunately, it has not moved forward as I would have liked it to. So May of this year, we were thinking about different ways to have the bill move forward, and I presented this as an amendment to the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization, which is a bill that was passed in 2008 and is now currently up for to be reauthorized in this Congress. So the bill, I opened it up so it would incorporate the 4 diseases that are currently approved by the RUS but are not being screened for nationwide. And those diseases are Pompe, MPS1, ALD, and SMA. And this would also take into account any new diseases that are coming through the pipeline. The way the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization bill is structured, it does have funding attached to it, but the funding primarily goes to pilots and research, and they're skipping over this really crucial problem that the states do not have funding to move forward. So unfortunately, in October of 2019, just last month, the nonprofit coalition, which is led by the March of Dimes, they voted against adding this amendment to the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization, which was very discouraging for me, that an organization that focuses on babies would be against this, but they didn't give me a reason. They said it muddies the waters, which is not acceptable. So looking into the future, I'm not giving up on it. So we're creating a Patient's Voice grassroots coalition to have a voice in Congress. I feel like the coalition that exists right now, that is larger nonprofits, don't really have the patient's voice in mind. They're more of a corporate structure. So working on that. We are working towards an appropriations bill for 2020 since we were not able, probably not, to be added to the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization. So we're looking to create an appropriations bill that would directly give funding for the 4 diseases and any new diseases coming through the pipeline. We're continuing to gather signatures on our change.org petition, and that should be part of the folder that you received this morning. And then we're also asking, we do have a letter of support, so we're asking any other nonprofits or institutions to sign on to our letter of support, which will help when I'm having meetings in Congress as well. And of course, we are still continuing to work on our state efforts. We're not giving that up. And then finally, I just, want to say thank you to everyone that's helped with moving this forward, and of course to not forget the reason why we're all doing this. And these are just some of the faces of the children that have been affected, and Aiden, and this is my daughter Sienna with Brody and Matthew, 2 of the boys diagnosed through newborn screening, and they are the ones that keep me going. So thank you so much.